thank you all so much for having me. I'll go back to the pretty picture. My name is Gwen Partrick. I work for the Shorefast Institute of Place-Based Economies. I'm going to focus talking about our work in economic nutrition, but I'll first start by always placing our conversation. I find I always learn the most about someone by knowing where they're from. So I'll share where I'm from and where Shorefast is from too. More about the organization Shorefast and the Shorefast Institute, and then I'll dive more into economic nutrition, some of the exciting work that we're doing around this tool set. So I'm from a place called Salt Spring Island, BC. So it is located in BC, right off of Vancouver Island, closest to Victoria, about a couple ferries away from Vancouver. And many people affectionately call it an island surrounded by, or an argument surrounded by water. That's its nickname locally, and that's definitely true. And it's mainly because everyone is so passionate about their community of Salt Spring. Everyone volunteers for something, and everyone thinks that whatever they're volunteering for is the right and only solution, which of course causes lots of arguments. And I'm definitely no different. I grew up also deeply passionate about the place that I'm from. And a little bit more about our work with Fogo Island. So, of course, coming from an island, that's what drew me to working for an organization, another island. So, Fogo Island is where Shorefast is based. So, just for some geographic context, the little heart icon, Salt Spring Island, where I'm from, the star over on the whole other side of the country, that's where Fogo Island is located. The pin in the middle is Toronto. That's where I'm currently based. So I work for the Shorefast Institute, which I'll talk a little bit more about. I work with communities across the country in supporting their economic development and their approach. So that we'll dive more into. This is Newfoundland, and the little dot Fogo Island above, it's another island off an island situation, just like how Salt Spring Island is as well. It's a small island located in the northeast side of the province. And Fogo Island is made up, zooming in again, Fogo Island is about 4 times the size of Manhattan Island for context. So really geographically big, but the population is around 2,100 people spread across 10 very distinct cultural communities across the island. So a little bit more about Fogo Island. They were originally a summer settlement of the Beothuk indigenous people. It was colonized in around the mid 1600s and was primary fishing and built all around the fishing industry for hundreds of years. And during this time, they all fished like how they are fishing in that photo above using gill nets for those hundreds of years, all the way up until the mid 1900s when factory trawlers came below. And this is a quote from Zita Cobb, the founder of Shorefast's father, which I love, and that's who in their right mind would catch all the fish? They must be turning the fish into money. And Newfoundland was a cashless society in rural Newfoundland all the way up until the 1960s. So this whole concept of money and taking this resource and having it disappear and turned into money is something that I think a lot of people can relate to from single resource communities and towns. There's a lot of these types of stories. And Fogo Island was very fortunate because around that time in the 60s, for the depletion of cod stocks, there was the Resettlement Act of 1965, strongly encouraging places from rural Newfoundland to move to more urban areas. And you can see the picture, they actually took their whole houses with them when they left, floated them in the ocean. They were very fortunate because Fogo Islanders were stubborn. Many did not want to leave. And around that same time, the National Film Board of Canada, in partnership with Memorial University in St. John's, came out to Fogo Island and produced 27 films across those 10 communities. What I didn't say before is those 10 communities did not interact with each other for various religious and cultural difference reasons. So these films were produced and screened locally, and this is the first time they were seeing and hearing from each other, realizing they were facing the same challenge. And out of that, they formed the Fogo Island Cooperative Society, which is now one of Canada's oldest co-ops, which took back local ownership over their fishing industry. And it's still active today. But cod stocks continued to deplete. A moratorium was enacted in 1992. And despite Fogo Island, the co-op is still, fishing is still the main industry of the island. But Shorefast was founded by siblings Zita, Alan, and Anthony Cobb to add a second leg to the economy of Fogo Island, to add a second leg to the fishing industry, with the goal and mandate of the organization to build economic and cultural resilience on Fogo Island. And a shorefast is the visual. A shorefast is a line that ties a cod trap to the shore, just for context of our name. And the biggest area that we do that on island is through using business as a tool, specifically using business as a tool to strengthen and amplify local assets. So the charity owns and operates businesses. One of them pictured here called the Fogo Island Inn. And the businesses that we start, as well as the charitable programmings, are all coming from the place, so based on existing assets, and then working to continue to amplify and strengthen them through our business practices. So a bit about the organization structure on island. We now own 5 community businesses based on Fogo Island. Surplus, if any, from those businesses flow into the Shorefast charity side and flow out through local programming and initiatives. And then one of the most recent initiatives is the Shorefast Institute that I'll get into. One of the biggest areas that we enact local economic and cultural development isn't actually through those surpluses flowing into the charity side and local initiatives. It's really how we spend with those businesses that we operate. So for all those businesses, including the inn, our procurement is Fogo Island first. So everything from that inn that was built came from Fogo Island, the wood, everything. Everything that couldn't be sourced on Fogo Island came from our closest communities in Newfoundland. Then the province larger, Newfoundland and Labrador, then Canada, North America, traditional trading partners, and then the rest of the world, countries that have same or if not better environmental and labor standards. There's also a lot of other factors into our procurement, but this is the greatest way that we enact change, except the inn has a very high price. So rightfully so, when you're looking at that hotel and you can look it up, you should be absolutely shocked by the price, and that's completely fair. Your first question should be, hey, where the heck is all that money going? And we can tell you the dialogue, we can show the graph and talk about how we spend in our procurement, but there's only so much talking can do when you don't have it supported with numbers. So my colleague Diane Hodgins developed economic nutrition in 2018, starting with the inn. And it was based on the concept of food nutrition labeling. So the thought of when you go to the store, if you want to, the information is there to help you align your food purchases with your health goals. So the thought was, what if we could have a label that helped align your purchases with your local economic goals? And this was our step into a visual for that. So this is the inn's label. The top shows where the money goes. So it shows where it goes to your local community, then the province, then the rest of the country, and then outside of Canada. So we always target for the inn specifically over half to never leave the shores of the island. The bottom half shows what it pays for in a year. So I was a financial statement auditor and CPA before this, and even with a lot of accounting knowledge and a lot of business knowledge, financial statements are still not an easy tool to use and understand what happened in a year for your business. So this is meant to be a very high level, quick snapshot of where the money is going and what it's paying for. And we found that this tool has been pretty transformative in communicating our economic impact story. It's done so much of the communication for us, most specifically with the local community. So both with people spending money at our businesses, but more importantly, with communicating it to the community of Fogo Island. It's also been very helpful for benchmarking. So for instance, the Canadian average spend in the hotel industry on salaries and wages is around 30%. So we always aim to be much well and above that spend on our labor. Same with our targets on where the money is going geographically. And it's been completely transformative in shaping how we make every purchase. We really think about every purchase as an investment, both with making sure it's a purpose that fits like economic sense for our business, but also knowing that every expense is going to flow through transparently in this label. So we really think about every purchase as an investment in our local economy, how it impacts the communities that we're working with. So around this time, we created the labels in 2018, had since rolled them out to all of our businesses, but we had been actively reached out. We've now been operating for over 20 years on Fogo Island from other places in Canada and around the world wanting to learn from us and our tool sets and our approach. So during the pandemic, we had capacity to do a pilot. So we worked with 5 communities across the country, and we asked the question, how do you strengthen local economies? And 4 key areas came out of that. One was attracting and retaining capital that's tethered to the places we live. One is building local skill sets, mindsets, capacity to the economic development work. One, and probably the most important, creating architectures for collaboration between the pillars of government, markets, and community. Then the last one is accessing and leveraging data or making economic data more visible. And economic nutrition is absolutely a tool that falls into there, making economic data more accessible and visible. And we've been very Fogo Island focused throughout that period. That was the mandate, but increasingly now working with others through the pilot, we realized that one of the biggest takeaways from the pilot is that we have a lot to learn from other communities across Canada, but also from other communities in and around the world. And we have a lot to build and share. So this year, we're formally launching the Shorefast Institute for Place-Based Economies that I'm a part of. And we're developing resources that connect, so creating more networks, having places be able to see other inspiring projects, learn from each other, creating resources, and we're developing financial and economic tool sets like different financial models. We're working with Dark Matter Labs on different fund structures, other ways to support and create thriving economies that promote dignity for more places and more people. And economic nutrition is one of these tool sets that we're now finally able to roll out to communities beyond Fogo Island. So this is another label for, many people think the Inn is our favorite business. It's truly Growler's ice cream. That's the most popular one, absolutely. It's an amazing ice cream business on Fogo Island that celebrates traditional foodways. So here's another label example. And this summer, we're launching the 2025 Economic Nutrition Pilot. So we're formally starting with Canada, so starting with businesses across Canada, helping us collaboratively pilot our resources on making this label and helping us as we try to launch this more broadly as a certification program in 2026. So a little bit about the route. There's a lot of back and forth. Do we just create templates, guides, and release economic nutrition on its own? But we were advised about people potentially manipulating the numbers and really causing damage for anyone else trying to use the label. So we pursued certification route both in Canada and have applications in the US active as well. Trying to create a process that allows for some form of assurance and process and guidelines around the labeling. So this is all being piloted this summer. We're also piloting a web plugin and a platform that will allow people to track their economic nutrition data over time, help generate labels, and provide the label plugin that can pop up on partner websites, as well as be able to click into a platform that talks about the procurement strategy in general. We're also targeting nutrition coaching, so helping businesses get ready for economic nutrition certification, as well as a bunch of resources and guides that our pilot partners are testing with us this summer. So in addition to the pilot, I know that this is an American call that I am on, and I've mentioned a lot about Canada and resources with Canada. We are putting out a lot more public resources that are available not just to the pilot participants. So this summer, we're really testing the model and the guides with them. But we're also putting out more publicly available guides on our approach and our model beyond just the pilot. So this is one of our first toolset suites launching this summer. So we're putting out, we call it the Shorefast Guide to ABCDE. So really our approach is to asset-based community economic development, the ABCD, making sure adding the E, which is the economies, so the development of an economy that strengthens and amplifies local assets. So this tool set will include our approach to ABCDE, so a bit behind our approach of building the economy, using business as a tool based on assets, as well as coming out with facilitator guides, workshops that could be enacted in communities to help guide along this process. It's going to be an evolving tool set. So this is the initial launch this summer with many more modules and tools being built on top of it. The second piece is a guide for community business. So our definition for community business is one that serves the places we live. We see that every business can be a community business. It's just there's different criteria on it. So we're releasing a guide on kind of our thoughts for what does it mean to be in service of place? What does it mean to be a business in service of place? As well as creating a scorecard for businesses to go through to determine kind of where they are on that spectrum. So that'll be coming out this summer as well. And then also releasing a guide, more detail on the principles and practices and our procurement approach behind economic nutrition. And then diving more deeply into a guide to get started with economic nutrition as well. So this one starting out specifically with just a guide on how to track local spend as a great starting point to get started. So there's some key steps that you can go through and as an organization to start getting this metric. One, starting by defining local. Two, understanding the current data setup. So how is your accounting data currently set up? What data do you have today? What are you missing? What are the gaps? Then walking through the process of just IDing local vendors and then getting a baseline spend. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be a spend to start tracking as your baseline and then figuring out where to go from there. So getting that baseline, setting benchmarks, looking for opportunities with local spend. So is there a supplier that maybe you think could move local or not? If not, why? And then communicating it. How do you then start communicating it with just the local level part of the label? So I will stop talking for now, as I'm sure there will be some questions. I've been not able to look at chat while presenting, so I'll take a look if there's anything in there. But I'll stop for now and we can spend some time on questions.
Yeah, awesome, Gwen. And I really appreciate that you're not only innovating locally, you're intentionally sharing nationally, internationally, globally, hopefully, very soon. So we really appreciate you spending some time with us. So nobody asked question in the
Oh,
chat, but if
perfect.
anyone has one, oh yeah, Jessica is ready to roll. You go right ahead.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Okay, I'm outside. It's a beautiful day here in Rhode Island. This is amazing, Gwen. Thank you so much for sharing. I absolutely I love everything about it. Particularly the ease and simplicity of looking at the label, and then also the way you've gone beyond the label to think about other components. I'm curious if there are ways of thinking about this less from an individual business perspective and more from kind of an ecosystem player, convener, advocate, builder of how beyond just maybe trying to get individual businesses to use this, which I can see as one really great option, but are there other ways, do you think, that we could engage with this label in a useful way to kind of approach the ecosystem as a whole?
Great question. We're definitely getting at that at quite a few ways. So one, I'll clarify, not just for businesses. So this summer we're piloting with municipalities, educational institutions. Applications just closed this past weekend, so we're finalizing our selection and announcements for pilot partners will be probably early mid-July. But there's quite a few different organizations, nonprofits. We're working with a large real estate developer firm as well through the pilot. So there's been a lot of broader interest even beyond what we thought with the label or beyond who we thought would be applying for it, which is really exciting. So through this pilot, it's beyond just using the label. These people that have applied, it's an amazing group of applicants that we've received, and I would define them all as place-based procurement champions. I'm really excited about what's going to come out of the pilot this summer. So we're going beyond just helping them make the labels, but additional surveying of customers or people interacting with the organization, as well as surveying data on procurement decisions and how this impacted procurement decisions. So we'll be releasing a more detailed pilot report targeting early December that will have insights beyond just how the label process went and hurdles, trying to gather more on the procurement side, how did this shift decision making and taking it a next step, and really focusing on what an amazing opportunity we have to put together a cohort of incredible organizations doing really interesting things with their procurement and how do you show it. So that's one piece specific to economic nutrition, but also more broadly through the Institute, we're looking at putting together a few different networking models to test how do we build and take practitioners in place-based economic development work and having them see insights. So one of the best parts of the pilot for us was just seeing great things going on in other communities that we never would have had a chance to learn from. Another big insight was how many common challenges we face. So every place is unique. Every place has unique assets, but a lot of our challenges were similar. So there was a lot of value in being able to work with each other. So we're working through now different kind of network models, cohort models that we're testing this year as we launch out the Institute of how to help build those bridges, that kind of interconnectivity as an organization if we can do that. So I hope that answered your question.
Awesome. And we have a question from Rebecca, Daniel, and then Raymond. But Rebecca, someone else who spends a lot of time thinking about procurement, purchasing with purpose. Do you want to go off mute, Rebecca, and ask your question?
Sure. I was really interested in this topic when the email came through, and I think it's really, really interesting what you're doing. But so I'm involved in a global verification system, as well as local place-based purchasing initiatives in the US. And one of the things that we come across is that certification marks are often really expensive. And so then they become prohibitive for sort of everybody to adopt. And I was just wondering how you're going to work to make sure that this mark could be regenerative and accessible so that it doesn't crowd people out rather than calling them in.
Another great question. Again, we went back and forth initially just wanting to make this a freely accessible open use tool, but using that certification mark as a layer. So that's a huge part of the pilot and that's why we're really targeting a diverse, big, small, different locations across the country of businesses. One of our big questions that we're asking is, would you pay for it? If not, or if yes, how much? What is the scale? And then if the answer is no, then looking towards a sponsorship model, always keeping it free. So the pilot this summer is free for businesses under 500 employees. So that is our model for the summer. And then moving beyond that, that's one of our big questions we'll be testing and getting feedback on is what is the willingness to pay? What is the capacity? And if not, then that's great information from us. We'll seek a free model and secure sponsors or funders or another way of keeping it going. So that's part of the questions that we have. So we don't have the answer yet. We're keeping it free, again, under 500 employees this summer. But we want it to be as available as possible, knowing that many interested businesses have been very small scale or non-for-profit organizations. So no matter what, it'll be scaling or with probably secure spots or perhaps like this summer, having the larger organizations with capacity fund the smaller ones that are part of the pilot. That's the current model. So maybe that's what we end up sticking with moving beyond. Sorry, that wasn't a solid answer, but
no, and I would be happy, Gwen, to chat with you about our kind of journey with that as well, and
that'd be great.
Participatory verification systems as opposed to third-party certification marks as a more accessible, like community-owned piece. I'll reach out via email.
Definitely, yeah.
Awesome, thanks, Daniel, and then Raymond. Daniel, would you like to go off mute? I'll ask his question. Oh, go right ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry, it took me a second to find it. Yeah, no, first, thank you for having this and for hosting us, or excuse me, for doing this presentation. I'm just wondering about stakeholders in terms of, for communities that they're not actual islands, but they just maybe like to believe they are. And they, for our neighborhoods and our smaller portions of our community who they view themselves as very different, and so there's a lot of resistance. Sometimes it's things won't work, and so I guess I'm kind of wondering, like, have you encountered resistance in any areas that you've approached, and do you see maybe specific stakeholders that you want to get their buy-in, and find those champions in the areas?
Great question. I think less related to economic nutrition and more of our work as we've been working now with branching out to communities across the country, working on specific projects or economic development projects with them. Always resistance. We deal with also on Fogo Island, also resistance as we go through, and that's the key of one is moving at the speed of impact, taking time, ensuring the appropriate engagement. So, for instance, the building on the screen, I think Shorefast was founded in 2004. The inn did not complete construction until 2013. That was the speed needed to ensure appropriate buy-in, doing it right. There's a lot of steps and a lot of things that happened before this business arrived. We take the same approach. And I think going back to those four levers I mentioned in how do you create and strengthen local economies, that's why I said the most important one is architectures for collaboration, specifically between the three pillars. So that's government, markets, community. So any project, or at least we find with our work, we need to involve key representatives from government, key representative from the market, so key local business leaders, as well as key community members on everything that we do. If we don't have representation from one of those three pillars, it's not happening. We're not doing it right. So when we've been starting to now engage and work with communities across the country, trying to do that as like that exact same thing. So whether there already is a table set, an organization that maybe gathers those three players, that's wonderful. If not, that's part of our work of how do you facilitate that representation. That's pretty key to addressing the resistance piece and time. So engagement, time, that and representation.
Great. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Raymond.
Hi, thank you for sharing this. Absolutely amazing. When I first saw it, it's like, yeah, that's it. Anyways, I was just curious if you've talked about this already and it's a little bit represented there. So if my question is a little clumsy, let me know. But curious about multiple location businesses that cover multiple locations that are maybe in the same region, but want to list multiple locations. Like if that looks something like more like multiple certifications, or if that's more like you could represent it like it does here. Where does the money go? Just curious if you've addressed that at all, if you plan to. I'm sure it's come up at some point. So just was curious about that.
It's one that we're testing out this summer. So we are working with a large, for one instance, real estate developer where they have multiple projects, multiple neighborhoods. So our approach for that at the moment is to go down to the business unit to where there is a local level. So down to specifically the real estate development project, or let's say a grocery store chain. Same thing. You would need to go down to the label. The label level would have to be at the specific grocery store unit level, not the organization as a whole. That's been the approach that we're taking, and that's what we're going to be testing out this summer to see if that's a viable approach, working with businesses at that scale. But that's where we see. For us, it would be information overload if we had a huge retailer grocery store chain with 100 different localities. Gets complicated. So we're looking and excited to test it out at specifically business unit level for those types of organizations at that scale.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Super. Taylor.
Yeah, I was just curious if this eventually could be something that's as easily integrated into accounting software. And so you could instantly have an assessment of, hey, this is where I'm at, and see industry standards and be able to compare and hopefully align with the impact side.
Absolutely. You've looked into our crystal ball of where we want the future to go for these labeling. Definitely. So we've worked over a long period of time to have this as automated as possible within our own accounting software. So there is a manual hurdle at first of ensuring that you have the appropriate address data in. That's same with when you start to track your local spend for any organization, ensuring you have the appropriate data and addresses into your accounting system, into your payroll system. This was created by an accountant. I'm an accountant, so it's integration in accounting. That's how we pull this report that feeds into the labels. We absolutely are excited to see where this goes with the aim of having some really quick and easy plug-in or integration with some accounting softwares to make this as accessible as possible. We've also been excited about the possibility of creating labels for your own individual spend. So could there be an app or tracker of that nature so you could get your own nutrition labeling? Where did your money go this month? Those are all things that we're excited to look at. Right now, just trying to discover the hurdles and learn about all the different accounting systems of our pilot participants this summer. But yes, that is definitely where our big ambitions lie.
Well, that's fantastic. We'll go to Marianne and then back to Jessica had another question.
Hey y'all. Thank you so much for this. I just wanted to ask, considering that there's value in a uniform approach to the label looking similar, you'd probably know this better after the pilot, but what about the idea of customizing a little bit? For example, the final line item, COVID debt service. If you were doing this, I'm thinking for New Orleans, for our municipality, we might not want to say, we might want to include like bond debt or, you know, something of that nature. So how much are you all seeing or looking for feedback on what could be customized, whereas the overall uniformity, that strength is retained?
Yeah, great question. So this summer we have set some specific guidance is on how many of those categories you can have on a label so that it's not overwhelming. So you have to pick, for example, the 7 most material line items are up to that. So we're setting some of those guides, and we have a list of pre-approved expense category expenses that organizations can pick from to display below. And our process is, if you have an expense category that is not on our pre-approved list, or the language you want to tweak it specific to your organization, just has to be approved by us first before going in, again, to ensure that it is an appropriate line item to be showing. There's more guidance that we are in development for that label standardization, but trying to keep it flexible. We're also looking at, there's been some organizations wanting to add a who does the money go to section as well. So we've been working with some partners that have specific Indigenous owned business targets or social enterprise targets too. So we're really excited to see a visual of the label that could include a who category if that's something that an organization would also like to display. So we want to keep it customizable, but at least the visual always kind of taking that nutritional label look, as that's the key to a quick understanding of the label when you're reading it.
That's great. Great question, Marianne. So clarifying question from Jessica, and then another question from Jordan, or a question from Jordan. Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, just quickly. So I think I'm getting tripped up on the use of the word certification. The model itself is certified. It's not that you are certifying the businesses according to their results of.
We would, so it is a certification mark process, kind of like a B Corp, but the way that we've designed it is it's extremely accessible. That was just the route that we were advised to go to be able to keep some assurance level. So yes, there's a very, very minimum certification mark hit, kind of like a B Corp, but it's very low. I'll need to pull it up, but it's a very small percentage of local spend, which we envision every single organization being able to hit, so we can have and certify as many as possible. That was the route that we went on for this. So it is a certification like a B Corp, and we're working out kind of that more specifics, but that's the mark that we've successfully published this way.
Great. And Jordan.
Thank you, Gwen. I'm going to echo what's been said a lot, but this is really exciting and we love this idea so much. You mentioned one of the groups you're piloting this with is a real estate developer, which sent my brain down a rabbit hole. I'm based in the Charleston, South Carolina region. We are a membership-based organization for independent businesses. We're actually hoping to pilot this year something different from this, but specifically for a scorecard tool for commercial developers, a tool for us to be able to lend the community some transparency around these bigger anchor-based developments on our little peninsula, for them to see a little bit more of the spending of these big projects and the intentionality behind them and the community engagement and involvement process. And the way we're hoping to pilot this is they would get sort of scored and then incentivized by the city or county they're in accordingly. So if they score high, they would get X, Y, or Z incentives. I'm curious if any of you are piloting, if folks are using this just for the feel good, maybe PR push, celebratory reasons, or if there's any of that, like if you do express 50% or higher of where your money is going, staying in the local or region, maybe you're eligible for a grant or a tax incentive or land use benefit, any of that kind of governmental incentivizing.
We haven't thought down that linkage route. I will say we have thought down the route is that we are working on different fund structures and social finance models. So this one we absolutely do see as having the potential to be an indicator for funding as one indicator for how do you support your local economy. We're hesitant, I'm hesitant, I won't speak for others, on setting those very specific thresholds for, let's say, your local community, province, or even country spend. For example, we're really excited to try and work with a coffee shop who's going to have a very large international spend. And that's
Right.
one, we can't grow coffee in Canada, but two, they're trying to go above and beyond to pay fair wages, benefits to their international coffee suppliers. And that's something that's important and to be celebrated. So we're trying to, there's no right or wrong for our business and our targets. For us, it's really important to ensure our community is resilient, but also the partner communities that we're working with. Because if one of them that supplies, for example, our wine from Nova Scotia, if that community is struggling and we lose that supplier, that's also detrimental and tarnishes us too. So it's important for us to spend appropriately for, again, that wine supplier that's also serving their place. So we are looking at that scorecard route for our community business guide that we're looking to put out. So what does it mean to be in service of place, some criteria and building out that more specific card. That's also something we look at when we select a procurement. But those specific targets we haven't dove into because I think it'd be difficult to set what that is. It really, for even
Be
us.
very case by case. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and go to Steve and then back to Taylor, who had a comment and question.
Yeah, thanks, Jen, and thanks, Gwen. Little rhyme there. Awesome idea, and it seems like in practice, this is just like has the potential to make huge change and to really like, yeah, I think it's incredible. I love this idea. My question though is about like your theory of change a little bit. So, and you may have sort of touched upon this a little bit, but I'm specifically curious about, when we think of this labeling system, right? The big one is obviously just regular old nutritional labeling, which was the late 80s, early 90s. I don't know about Canada, but it was, the idea was that because it's compulsory, that's what's going to affect the change, right? Micro businesses, if you're selling below a certain amount, don't have to do it. That's still the case. But the idea was all of these processed foods, these cans, these packages that are sitting in grocery stores, large and small, must display what's in the foods with the understanding that maybe it arms consumers with enough knowledge to make healthier choices, but also this enhanced transparency encourages the companies themselves, the CPG companies themselves, the brands to put healthier stuff in the foods. So I'm wondering, short of this being compulsory, like it's a different thing, right? I'm curious what your approach is there. Like, is there, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is there like a blue sky scenario or a sort of North Star sort of in the back of your heads thinking, well, this could be cool as like a mandatory, this could be cool, particularly interesting and powerful if it had the backing of sort of like government regulation. And this is the sort of thing that you saw on backpacks or on, whatever, on everything, just not just like for people to elect to do it. And then if it's there, great. As Jordan mentioned, it's a good PR thing. There's obviously beneficial outcomes that come from it being something that is elective, but I don't know. I'm just like dreaming of a world whereby this is forced to be put on everything. And then everyone, companies, consumers included, are compelled to reckon with the choices that they make.
Absolutely. We've thought in a dream world everyone would be showing this information, everyone would be transparent to this level. But we've thought more down to the practical world, where could we see this going more quickly? So really excited to be piloting with 1 or 2 municipalities this summer. One, the label for them, their data is already public. And 2, could things like economic nutrition be a procurement requirement for a municipality? Could we start by that route? Same with our fund structures that we're looking at putting out. Could we make economic nutrition a funding requirement? We have to be able to see where your money goes if we're funding your organization, and you have to make it public. We've thought about those routes, looking at that first, as being especially recently. Procurement has been a big topic of conversation, and tracking more specifically where your money is going, where is it flowing, who are you partnered with, who are your suppliers. Those questions have just been increasingly on the top of everybody's mind. So we didn't even think that this would be a reality possibility as fast as it has become. So we think that's the route to start exploring first, before scaling up from there.
Sure, great, thanks.
Taylor, you had another comment question?
The idea mostly came from like lead certifications of like silver, gold, bronze. And as you were talking more about procurement, I was almost thinking just the ripple effects of how local is your local. And so going to the second degree of, hey, yes, your supplier's local, but where do they source from? And so being able to actually show some scale that way.
Definitely. We do, that is a question we get often for a label, is, for instance, this doesn't take it to the next level. We don't then further require all of our in suppliers, for example, to then provide us their information and have it all flow up. In the most ideal world, our supplier would have an economic nutrition label. So our check shows it going to St. John's, Canada, and then you could go and check then where their check is flowing out to through their label. So that's why I say, in that ideal world, everyone would have this, so you could go to that next level. But from, again, a practical standpoint, being able to just start here, whereas your organization's money physically flowing, is for us the best starting point.
In my head, the idea of maybe that's where the higher tier certifications come in of, hey, we have gone through and we can show evidence of it.
It's a great point. And we've been looking, there's been a couple really exciting applicants. One, a craft store that supplies many vendors. So there we've thought, well, we might have to go to the next level there, because as a craft store that's only has local artist representation, it'd be 100% local for their procurement of the crafts. But then taking that to that next level, and then looking at a case to support nutrition labels for the vendors. So something that we are exploring, but I like that idea of a future tier for that level.
And Gwen, I'm curious, I've actually had some folks from Canada ask me, meaning American Independent Business Alliance, what alliances are national in scope in Canada? And have you been working with any groups like that, or know of any groups?
There's lots.
Yeah,
there's
lots.
a lot of incredible organizations and networks across Canada. A few that we'll be partnering with as we build out our own network. One amazing organization called the Canadian Urban Institute. They're working with us on the development of data dashboards, and specifically information that can help people better make place-based economic development decisions. Which is really exciting. Another amazing organization and network, by Social Canada, that is a social enterprise, our Canadian social enterprise certification, resources, and network there too. Another amazing organization that does a lot of work in procurement. So they're just an incredible partner and someone to have on our team. And another great organization called Tamarack, which really is the holder of ABCD. We're coming at it with that specific economy focus. As for us, the economy really tethers people to place. But they do a lot of amazing work on a lot of topics in community development and economic development, and they're another great partner that we're tapped into. So I'll stop listing there, otherwise I'll go on and I'll offend people for not including them on my list. But there's a lot of amazing network organizations that we have.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. I've definitely been a fan of Tamarack, and recently discovered by Social Canada, so that's great. I'll check out the others, and you can send me email for your full list.
Yes, I do. I've been putting a list together. I think I have like 50
Awesome.
organizations, so I won't bother listing them all out. But a lot of great groups
That's
from the
great.
local to the provincial to the national.
Fantastic. Great. I know some other folks might have questions, but before people, I know some people had to jump off early, but I just wanted to emphasize that we are recording this. I will send you a recording, and hopefully we will have Gwen and others from Shorefast back. Hopefully we'll have some of the pilot communities come and talk to us so we can learn quickly what's working for you all. Any other questions though, feel free to just pop right in. You don't have to wait for me to call you on you.
I'll just say if you're if you're thinking about a US pilot, you know, go to Jen so she can come to us.
We absolutely will. We absolutely will. So our Canadian certification's been published, and then it'll be another year or two out for the US certification to finalize going through too. So, like I said, public resources coming very soon, but our US entrance a little bit delayed.
Well,
If anything does come up, I think I had my email on the screen before. So please feel free to reach out to check out our organization, Shorefast. We'll be putting out quite a few resources too. But yeah, reach out if you're wanting to be more connected.
Great. Well, thank you again, Gwen, and thank you all for coming here today. I know my mind is kind of connecting the dots, so let's keep this conversation going. We will have another local leaders roundtable in July. We don't have the topic quite nailed down, you know, some are thinking, but I'll definitely let you know. And thanks again, all.
Thank you.